All right, we'll get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly 30-minute workshop. My name is Jim Schultens. I'm a system engineer here at Variphy, and I'll be your host for today's workshop. And today we're joined by my good friend and proud new owner of a rescue puppy, John Delane, another systems engineer here at Variphy. How you doing, John? Or more importantly, how's the puppy doing?
The puppy is doing fabulous. She loves
Awesome.
her new digs, for
Good,
sure.
good to hear. Yep. All right. For today's webinar, we're going to be showing you how to customize the CUCM report templates to meet your environment. We're going to go start with a quick overview of our company and what we do. We'll jump into a live demo where John's going to show us how to customize those CUCM templates. We'll pause for some Q&A and get your questions answered during the demo. If you do have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right of the screen. After Q&A, we'll reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card. So make sure you hang around to see if you've won. All right, a quick overview of Variphy. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution for all types of collaboration, providing industry-leading customizable call manager, UCCX Cube, and now Zoom reporting analytics and dashboards, along with a suite of tools like remote phone control, change management, macros, and DID management. But for today, we're going to be focusing on CUCM report templates. If you have any other questions about any of our other features, or if you have any interest in taking our Zoom analytics for a spin, feel free to chat me up in the Q&A panel in the bottom right corner, and or reach out to your account manager for more information. One more thing before we kick things off, Variphy does offer a managed consulting service where Variphy's SE team engages you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboarding, configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you a dedicated Variphy SE to do all the heavy lifting, giving you a completely hands-off experience. For more information, please contact us and we'd be glad to speak with you more in depth about our Ninja Enhanced services. All right, let's get into the demo. John, let me stop sharing here
Yep.
and get you the ball.
All
There
right.
you go. It's
All
all
right.
yours.
Thanks. Thanks for the introduction there, Jim. Welcome everyone to this week's webinar. As Jim said, my name is John Delane, and I'm here today to provide some guidance on our CUCM specific report templates and how you can alter them to accommodate your unique environments. Bear in mind that the templates are intended to provide a starting point, a jump start for your analytic reporting adventures. So along the way, I'll also include a few optional change possibilities. As I move through the templates, please feel free to submit questions in the Q&A, and we'll leave some time at the end, hopefully, to address them if you have them. I'm going to start today, though, by quickly going through how to get the templates into your system if you don't have them already. And it all starts with variphy.com, where you'll need to log in. And once your login is processed, you go under the support dropdown to product downloads. And a little ways down on the left there, you'll see the Variphy CUCM CR report templates. You'll also see that there's other ones that we won't be covering today. So I'm going to click on the download templates. That takes us to another page where I'll choose the download option. So what that does is it's going to put a zip file of the templates into your downloads folder. And so at that point, once that's complete, you go back into Variphy in the call analytics reporting under reports over on the right hand side. If you hover over the create report, you'll have the option to import reports. From there, you'll browse to your templates. If your environment's like mine, you can just right click, extract all, jumped over to a different page. I'll go ahead and extract that. It takes a second. Then you have the folder. You can select all of the templates, 16 files, and import. Now, hopefully this will go pretty quick. And there they are. All right, so for today, I'm going to go through them in order, alphabetically from top to bottom. But I do want to mention a few things before I jump in there. First is when you hit the templates, you own them, so they're not automatically shareable. So I'd recommend maybe making copies of them and then making the copy shareable. And I'll touch on that when I go into the first one here. The other thing that you'll want to note is that the templates are cluster specific. So I've imported them for my cluster one. If you have multiple clusters, you would need to go through this process for each one if you wanted to have the templates available there. All right, we'll jump right into the 911 calls report template. Within this template, we provide just the regular 911 number. In some environments, you may have the need to have like a 9911 or an 8911, or if you're a large facility, it may be that you have an internal emergency service number that you might want to have included here. Within the grouping search sats, well, let's see, lost my place. You may want to raise this minimum. No, I'm on the wrong one, sorry. Oh, so within the 911 report, you may not want to have both summary stats and details. So you could toggle off the summary stats in favor of just the details, or vice versa. If you're doing the call details, you may also want to toggle on the cradle to grave option, which would allow you to see multiple legs of that call. Say if someone was having a crisis and they called their manager instead of 911, and the manager then dial 911, you could get the whole life of that, the sequence of events for that 911 call. Next up in the template suite is the abandoned calls report. So under the search set here, you won't need to make any changes. This is a tried and true way of getting at the data set that we want for this. But under the groupings, it may be that rather than have the report sorted by alphabetical by name, you may choose to get a count. And if you want it like a top to bottom, who has the most abandoned calls, or vice versa. And in that instance, you may want to also work with the set a maximum count if you want to do top 10 or your bottom 10 for the report. So the next report that I'll look at is the calls without first call resolution. So this report is intended to show when callers have called in from the outside, terminated normally, but have had to call in more than once for the reporting period. For this one, you will need to change the calling party number, the original call party number, to match the numbers that you want to have reflected on the report. Oh, and for this one also within the search set, it may be that there's certain outside callers that you don't want included because they call in all the time, vendors or an expected number that you might want to have. In that instance, you could have the calling party number here excluded. So you might say does not equal, that outside calling number, or internal extensions. You don't want to include calls from internal numbers. You could omit those. All right. Next up is the detail by extension or phone number. Within this one, the search set name will need to be adjusted because this will appear on the output of the report. We just have a default in there where you'll want to make changes. And then you'll want to change your original calling original or final called party number. If you wanted to add more numbers to this, you could do that with just using the plus to add them, or you might want to create separate search sets for each one, and that would separate out their information within the search set stats. Within the details of this, assuming that the report is probably going to be distributed, you may want to go in and adjust some of the call history details that you include on the report, make it more relevant for the people who will be consuming the report. Something like the originating and terminating cause codes may not be relevant to the people that are reading the report. So definitely feel free to get in there and utilize some of the other details. Next, we're going to get into the dormancy reports. There's 5 of them, and they'll go pretty quick. We'll start here with the dormant extensions report. With this one within the search set, you would just need to adjust for your digit length for your extensions. Maybe you'd have 2 entries in here, one for 4 and one for 5. But now over on the grouping stats page, this is where we have a new feature available, just now in version 14.0, where you'll see here we have the same search set available under grouping stats as the original search set. We have the ability now to just click on one button there, and it eliminates the need to maintain that in 2 locations. And this is going to be true across all the reports, but it's relevant here in the dormancy reports because they do utilize the same search set criteria for both the original search set and the grouping stat. And that is covered under a webinar that we have for the version 14 new features. And there's probably, if not already, a dedicated webinar for that. So the next dormancy report, I'm not going to go into this one individually because it's a combined for physical and soft phones. I'll just quickly go into the physical phone template. And really the only change that you might need to make in here is if for some reason you have physical devices that start with something other than SCP, you would have to maintain this. Now into the soft phone dormancy report. In addition, so here in the device names, there's a lot more devices that are generally out there that can be considered soft phone devices. This is a list that you may need to maintain. We've seen instances too where the soft phone device indicator is not at the start of the device. So it may be that you would need to go through here and do an ends with or a contains if that information is somewhere else within the field. And this report is a real good candidate then to toggle off that search criteria so that you don't have to do that somewhere else. You just one click and you're done there. The dormant user report, just like the other ones, except with this one, you need to add your own departments. We have in just some default departments. You would go through and make these adjustments, and then probably again there we go. You would toggle that off. All right, so we're past the halfway mark. And we'll go into that hunt group report. So the hunt group report is far and away the most commonly utilized template in my experience. It's super versatile, applies wide-ranging applicability, and so I'll spend maybe a little bit more time in this one. So you need to adjust for your hunt group. And we often get asked, why do we use original call party number here rather than the other field available, that is the hunt pilot number? And the reason for that is Cisco does not populate in their CDR records that field for calls that aren't connected. So we go this route so that we get even unconnected calls that came into that hunt as the original call party number. So within the grouping statistics, this is another one where if there's a lot of where you might want to have like a top count, or you might want to limit how many that you're seeing. You have an opportunity in here to set your top, or to set, you only want to see numbers that have received, more than 10 calls or less than 10 calls. I do want to note here, while this is a good report to talk about it, is the grouping stats takes your original search set results and kind of reformulates them, for a different view, and this by user ID. It may be that in your hunt group reporting, you want to see slightly different information by user than you would based on the whole search set, which is just all the calls that originally came into the hunt group. So it's really common, and really even advisable, to take a look at the statistic options that are available and to cater them to that, the nuances of what we have for the grouping stats versus the search set. And same with our time units and the scenario types. That's what makes this kind of infinitely configurable, is you can make it exactly what you want for the two separate areas. I'm going to drop out of the report, but I'm still going to be talking about hunt groups here for just a minute. We have when we run a hunt group report, by default, the reports are looking at 24 hours. And if you're running for a week, it's 7 days a week. What I want everyone to really keep in mind is that if your hunt group is only open, or I should say answering the phone for certain times of the day, I highly recommend, changing your window to just be the hours of operation. Because a lot of the graphs and data tables are kind of based on, well, the data tables are based on 12 hours, and it'll wrap to create more information in a second section. So if your hunt group is just answering calls for 12 or less hours a day, it's good to get in there and make that adjustment. And let's say you're doing the previous week, if you're not there on the weekends, to toggle that off as well when you run it. And I'll show a little example here if I can get it up. There we go. So here's a hunt group, a sample report, where it's set to just do 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. And you can see that it's a nice, most of the space is filled in graphically, and then down below the hours just line up across. But here's another example. If we left it at 24 hours, you see that you got a lot of blank space on either side and a lot of zeros through the data tables. So that's why I brought that up here, because for hunt groups, you can really make it more pleasing, more functional for your use by making that change. All right, so now we're going to get into a couple organizational reports. So these are organizational summaries. They're really compact, and I think they're just a couple pages long. Within the search set, you need to change this to your departments again, as we'd seen earlier. We just have our default placeholder in there, and you would select yours. This is another opportunity to cater it to your needs. Like percentages are absent from our template. You may want to get some average percentages in there, additional groupings to kind of flesh out what you're looking to get uniquely for your report. And this is another one because organizations are usually not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where I'm going to jump back into my samples here. Where these are, as I show you with the search time, if you're doing 24 hours, you might get graphs that look like this. Weekly graphs that, have empty space there. Whereas if you adjust those, the graphs can be a lot more pleasing to the eye, having, a smaller search time window of weekdays and business hours. The organizational summary by user is really similar, where again, you would just change the department there. This one, though, is another candidate because of the angle that it takes to not have to maintain a second search set here within the groupings to use that search set criteria that I mentioned earlier. And I just remembered one thing that I wanted to talk about in the hunt groups. I may jump back here, but I'll get through these last four before I do. So the search set for the, I should say, we're on to the SIP capacity report. The search set here, we have in the SIP trunk, if there's other devices that that you'd also want to consider here, you could add those in, or we have sometimes other device related criteria, to have device pools or descriptions or names. This is a report where it's not uncommon to change the actual search sets around a little bit from the original. The report comes with just two of the concurrency options turned on. It's one place where I recommend to play and see which one you prefer. We don't want to make that decision for you, and so there's a couple options in here for the concurrency, as well as on the search set stats, where you have a couple options for how to present the concurrent call information. Okay, so the soft phone versus hard phone usage. This is the only template in the suite that actually has built into it from scratch two separate search sets. So we have the hard phone usage and the soft phone usage as separate search sets. And so this presents on the printed report as two separate sections so that you see that information separately. And this is a really compact report. I think when you run it, it's one page. But you will need to, again, as we saw with the dormancy reports, you may need to make changes here as to how, whether you use the starts with or whether your devices are embedded or at the end, the little device indicators. And abnormal terminations. Okay. So this one casts a really broad net in its search set. Just, anything that has a digit is going to be included in the results returned. And then those get reformulated within the grouping stats. It may be that from the start, for your abnormal terminations, you want to get more targeted than this. You might want to change the criteria device pools or to something else that's relevant for where you think you're having termination problems. On this one, the grouping stat criteria is really important. And that's where we set the exclusions to say all these terminating and originating cause codes are normal, so we don't want them included in a list of in a report for abnormals. So you'll notice in each of these there's a toggle for is not, and that's overlooked often where people aren't really aware that you can do that with cause codes. You can turn them off, and when you get to running this report, you may see that there's other cause codes that are normal in your environment. There's an awful lot of them available, and you could just add those here under each of these sections. One other thing here is that 10 may not be a big enough number to show those abnormal cause codes. You may have a large installation where you might want to set that to 20 or some higher number so that you're sure to capture those occurrences. Right, so the last report in the suite for CUCM is the total call volumes report. So this one sets a really broad, just as the previous report, that abnormal terminations, it looks to capture everything in the search set. And then it takes that and by default just gives you the call totals by date and total calls. This is one where if you're interested to know what day of week has the highest totals, or what month if you're doing an extended report. And this one too just has the tables. It may be that you want to use a chart instead, where you could switch over to have a graphical representation rather than the table representation. So that you have all that flexibility here. So that is the last of the reports, and I'm going to jump back through my notes and see if I can quickly find, yes. So in the abandoned calls report, I wanted to make mention, to get to the right place, of the computed ring time. This would be a really good field to add within the abandoned call report, because abandoned calls they don't always just come in and be abandoned. They'll come in, ring through, go to another device where they're again not answered, and it kind of can have multiple sequences. And so the computed ring time takes into account on multi-leg calls. It's a proprietary calculation that we do to give a more accurate indication of the ring time for the additional legs. In this case would be the abandonment leg, so you can get a better idea of how long that rang before it was abandoned on its last, on its last leg. And that is there's a webinar for that too, with our 13.1 features, the computed ring time. And there's also, if you search on RKB for computed ring time, there's a dedicated one for that too. Since I have this up, I'll just point out too that within each of our platforms that we support, we have the report templates. Within the template, within the KB, there is coverage for each individual template as well. So let's get ready to wrap up here. So I hope I've provided you with some insight that you can apply to your own reporting requirements. We're always here to help if you get stuck or have results that aren't structured the way you intended. We know as well as anyone that it's a complex task sometimes. But now I think I left a little time for questions. Jim, have any?
You left time, but there are no questions. You covered it so well, John. Very good job.
Yeah, thanks.
The,
Thanks,
the only
everyone.
thing I may want to point out, I don't know if you covered it at the beginning. I was doing other things at the beginning. Copying these reports so you kind of keep the template as what it is as a template.
Yeah, I hope I mentioned that. It was in my notes and I think I did, but yeah, I may not
Okay.
have shown you how. So I think I said it out loud without pointing. So you can always, they're over on the right within the uh, report screen. We have, your run, your edit, and your copy. and then there's download, delete, and information. So it's advisable if you want to keep your original templates intact, to make copies. And once you have those, then make those shareable to the people that you want to have access to them.
Yep.
Good
Awesome.
point.
Yeah, like I said, I don't remember if you covered that or not. So good job, John. If you want to stop sharing, I'll take control and wrap this thing up.